Mark and Lisa seemed like the perfect couple, successful, happy, and untouchable. But behind closed doors, Mark was hiding a deadly secret, a flawless plan to murder his wife. What no one knew was that one tiny mistake, a single, overlooked detail, would unravel everything and expose the chilling truth. Mark and Lisa appeared to live the perfect life. From the outside, their marriage seemed like a dream. Two successful professionals, who had built a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood. Friends and neighbors admired them for their charm, generosity, and what seemed like an unbreakable bond. Mark worked in finance, climbing steadily up the corporate ladder, while Lisa was a talented graphic designer known for her creativity and warmth. Together they attended social events, hosted dinners, and presented a united front to the world. But beneath the surface, cracks had begun to form. Mark had grown distant, his patience thinning as Lisa's recent choices clashed with his own plans. Lisa, too, had started to pull away emotionally, frustrated by the strain she sensed, but couldn't quite name. The happy smiles and polite conversations hid a mounting tension neither was willing to confront openly. Mark felt trapped, weighed down by debts he kept secret, and by a growing desperation to control the unraveling situation. In Mark's mind, the solution became clear. If the marriage was doomed, he would make sure it ended on his terms. To him, Lisa's disappearance would be a clean slate, a way to erase his problems and start over without the complications of divorce, custody battles, or financial loss. He carefully studied methods that left no trace, reading about poisons that were undetectable and tactics used by criminals who never got caught. The more he planned, the more certain he became that his scheme was foolproof. To outsiders, Mark's behavior changed subtly, but not noticeably. He continued his routine, attended meetings, and maintained the image of the devoted husband. Lisa, unaware of the storm brewing behind closed doors, kept living her life, hoping for a reconciliation that Mark no longer wanted. The house remained tidy and welcoming, a mask for the darkness growing inside. Friends who saw Mark after work described him as stressed but not suspicious. He joked at parties and smiled during gatherings. No one could have guessed that he was calculating the perfect way to end Lisa's life without raising alarms. The plan was simple: poison her during a social event, ensuring no one suspected foul play. Mark would then have an unshakable alibi, attending a business meeting miles away. The poison he chose was rare, and he had obtained it quietly, believing it was untraceable. As the days passed, Mark's confidence grew. Every detail was accounted for. The timing, the setting, the disposal of any evidence. To him the plan was flawless. No witnesses, no fingerprints, no motive. It was the kind of crime that would leave detectives puzzled for years, if they ever suspected anything at all. But as Mark prepared for the night that would change everything, he failed to see how one small error, something he never noticed, would unravel the entire scheme. What he thought was perfect was about to become his downfall. The perfect life, it turned out, was only the beginning of a nightmare no one saw coming. Mark's plan was chilling in its simplicity, crafted with the cold precision of someone who believed he had thought of everything. For weeks, he had studied how to make it work without leaving a single trace behind. He knew that if there was any hint of foul play, suspicion would fall on him first. So, every detail had to be perfect. The key to his scheme was poison. Not just any poison, but a rare, slow-acting chemical that wouldn't cause immediate symptoms or dramatic signs that could be easily detected during an autopsy. Mark had spent countless hours researching which substances were hardest to trace and how they interacted with the human body. He discovered one particular toxin that was virtually invisible in standard tests and took advantage of how it lingered subtly in the system. Obtaining the poison had been the first challenge. Mark couldn't just walk into a store and buy it. So, he found an obscure online supplier who dealt in chemicals for industrial use, and ordered it under the pretense of needing it for repairs around the house. The delivery arrived discreetly, wrapped in plain packaging that attracted no attention. He stored it in a locked cabinet in the garage, hidden among other tools and supplies. Mark planned to administer the poison during a dinner party they were hosting. It was the perfect opportunity. Several friends and acquaintances would be present, ensuring no one would notice anything unusual. Lisa would be distracted by socializing, and the poison could be slipped into her wine glass unnoticed. Because the poison took several hours to fully take effect, she would appear fine throughout the evening. Meanwhile, Mark's alibi was rock solid. He had arranged to leave the party early, claiming he had an important business meeting across town that required his immediate attention. Several colleagues could confirm his presence there, and security cameras at the building would show him arriving and staying late. By the time Lisa's condition worsened, he would be miles away, giving him an unshakable cover. In his mind, the plan was perfect. No fingerprints, no signs of struggle, no clear motive. It would look like a tragic but natural death. Even the closest friends and family would have no reason to suspect Mark. He believed that with his careful preparation, the police would quickly close the case as an unfortunate accident. But Mark's confidence blinded him to the smallest details. He overlooked the way the poison interacted with a particular gauze that Lisa preferred to use, a detail that seemed insignificant but would later unravel everything. He didn't consider the sharp eyes of investigators who, faced with a mysterious death, would dig deeper than anyone expected. In his mind, the night would end with Lisa gone, and Mark free to move on without consequence. The poison, the party, the alibi. They were all pieces of a flawless puzzle. He was sure nothing could go wrong. Yet, as the evening approached, the thin line between perfect planning and fatal mistake was about to be crossed. What seemed like a masterstroke of criminal ingenuity was about to fall apart from a single tiny error, one that Mark never even noticed. The night of the dinner party arrived, and the house was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the warm glow of friendly conversation. Mark had spent hours preparing the meal and setting the table, making sure everything looked flawless. Lisa moved through the room with a smile, greeting their guests and chatting effortlessly. She seemed happy, relaxed, unaware of the dark plan that was about to unfold. The guests were a mix of old friends, colleagues, and neighbors. The atmosphere was light, with stories being shared and glasses filled. Mark kept his cool, playing the perfect host, all while watching for the right moment to put his plan into motion. He waited until Lisa was distracted, deep in conversation with a friend, and then carefully poured the poison into her wine glass. His hands were steady, his expression unreadable. No one noticed the subtle act hidden beneath the surface of the cheerful gathering. As the evening went on, Lisa sipped from the glass without suspicion. Mark excused himself earlier than usual, claiming he needed to prepare for his important business meeting. He left the party quietly, slipping out through the back door so no one would see him leave. The timing was perfect. By the time Lisa's condition started to worsen, he would already be far away, surrounded by colleagues who would vouch for his presence. Inside the house, the party continued without any signs of trouble. Lisa began to feel dizzy and unwell, but she attributed it to fatigue, and perhaps the rich meal. She excused herself and went to their bedroom, hoping to rest. It was there that the poison took its toll. Her breathing became shallow, and she collapsed onto the bed, unconscious. The guests remained oblivious to the tragedy unfolding just rooms away. When Lisa was found, the emergency services were called immediately. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but despite their best efforts, she was pronounced dead. The initial shock spread through the neighborhood. How could someone so full of life be gone in a single night? The police were called, and an investigation began, but at first everything seemed normal. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle, no visible injuries, and no obvious cause of death. Mark returned home after the party, presenting himself as devastated and confused. He played the grieving husband perfectly, hiding any hint of guilt or nervousness. The business meeting he claimed to have attended was confirmed by his colleagues and security footage, strengthening his alibi. To the outside world, it was a heartbreaking but natural loss. Yet beneath this calm exterior, the truth was far darker. The poison worked silently and effectively, and Mark's plan seemed to have succeeded without a hitch. No one suspected that this tragedy was anything but an unfortunate accident. The house, the party, the guests, all had witnessed nothing unusual. But as detectives began to dig deeper, the pieces of the puzzle wouldn't fit together as neatly as Mark hoped. Behind the perfect facade of that night, a tiny, overlooked detail was waiting to be discovered, one that would slowly unravel the entire plan and expose the deadly truth hidden beneath the surface. The official investigation began quietly, almost routine at first. Lisa's death was initially ruled as sudden natural causes, a tragic heart attack or an undiagnosed condition. There were no immediate signs of foul play, no forced entry, no signs of struggle, and no witnesses who reported anything suspicious that night. Mark's composed demeanor and solid alibi made the detectives' job seem straightforward. They believed they had a case that would close quickly. But detectives are trained to look beyond the obvious, especially when a young, healthy woman dies unexpectedly. Lisa was only in her early 30s and had no known health problems. Her sudden collapse raised questions. Her family, distraught and unable to accept the initial ruling, pushed for a more thorough investigation. The medical examiner agreed to conduct an extended toxicology screening, hoping to rule out any hidden causes. As forensic experts examined the evidence from the night of the party, they discovered something unusual, a tiny residue on the rim of a wine glass that Lisa had used during the event. At first it seemed insignificant, something that might be overlooked in many cases, but the lab decided to analyze it more closely. The results were shocking. Traces of a rare and potent toxin were detected. This tiny, almost invisible clue sent the investigation in a new direction. Detectives realized that Lisa's death was no accident. It was murder. The discovery of poison in her system, along with the residue on the glass, suggested that someone had deliberately targeted her. But who and why? With no apparent motive and no witnesses seeing anything suspicious, the case became a complex puzzle. Mark's alibi was re-examined thoroughly. The detectives checked his business meeting, verifying his presence through security footage and testimonies. Everything seemed to hold up. He appeared to have planned his actions carefully, covering his tracks well. Still, the presence of poison made him the prime suspect, given his close relationship with Lisa and access to the house. Detectives began digging into Mark and Lisa's personal lives. They interviewed friends, family, and neighbors, looking for any signs of conflict or tension. Many described the couple as happy, but a few close friends mentioned recent arguments and changes in Lisa's behavior. Something beneath the surface was troubling, but no one had suspected it would lead to murder. Meanwhile, forensic specialists delved into the origin of the poison. It was a rare chemical, not easily found or purchased without raising questions. Investigators checked purchase records, delivery logs, and online orders. The search for the source of the poison became a race against time. The tiny residue on the glass had become the turning point in the case. It was a single piece of evidence that had gone unnoticed initially, but was now unraveling the perfect plan. The investigation was far from over, and with each new discovery, the truth about Lisa's death and Mark's desperate attempt to cover it up came closer to the surface. What seemed like an unsolvable mystery was starting to crack, all because of a tiny overlooked mistake. The discovery of the poison residue on the wine glass marked a critical turning point in the investigation. Detectives knew that finding the source of such a rare toxin could unravel the whole case, but tracking it down was not going to be easy. The poison was not something commonly found in household products or stores, and it required special permissions to purchase legally. This meant someone had to go out of their way to obtain it, and that someone had access to Lisa's home and personal life. The police began examining records of chemical purchases in the weeks leading up to Lisa's death. They requested data from Slyer, online marketplaces, and industrial chemical distributors. After days of searching, a name finally appeared on one order. Under the guise of home repair supplies, he had purchased a small quantity of the exact toxin found in Lisa's system. This revelation was a massive breakthrough for the detectives, tying Mark directly to the murder weapon. Mark had believed his purchase would never be traced back to him. He thought the paperwork and shipping details would blend in the vast sea of commercial transactions. But the investigators saw through the disguise. The timing of the order, combined with Mark's close proximity to Lisa and the poisoning, was too suspicious to ignore. Once confronted with this evidence, the detectives intensified their search at the couple's home. A detailed sweep of the garage and storage areas uncovered the container Mark had hidden away. It was locked in a small box, carefully labeled and kept separate from other items. Alongside it were notes Mark had written, detailing the dosage, timing and instructions on how to administer the poison without raising suspicion. This chilling discovery proved Mark had not only planned the murder, but had taken the time to study and prepare every step meticulously. The notes revealed a man desperate to control every variable, confident in his belief that the plan would remain hidden forever. But the investigation did not thought the paperwork and shipping details would blend in the vast sea of commercial transactions. But the investigators saw through the disguise. The timing of the order, combined with Mark's close proximity to Lisa and the poisoning, was too suspicious to ignore. Once confronted with this evidence, the detectives intensified their search at the couple's home. A detailed sweep of the garage and storage areas uncovered the container Mark had hidden away. It was locked in a small box, carefully labeled and kept separate from other items. Alongside it were notes Mark had written, detailing the dosage, timing and instructions on how to administer the poison without raising suspicion. This chilling discovery proved Mark had not only planned the murder, but had taken the time to study and prepare every step meticulously. The notes revealed a man desperate to control every variable, confident in his belief that the plan would remain hidden forever. But the investigation didn't stop there. Detectives dug deeper into the couple's financial records and personal correspondence. They uncovered emails and messages hinting at serious marital problems. Lisa had been planning to leave Mark, taking with her not only her belongings, but a significant portion of their joint assets. This created a strong motive for Mark, a man who stood to lose everything. Friends and family, once convinced of the couple's perfect relationship, began to recall subtle signs of conflict and tension. The charming facade faded, replaced by a darker picture of lies, secrets, and growing desperation. Mark's carefully constructed alibi began to crumble under the weight of this evidence. The poison, the purchase, the notes, and the motive formed a web that linked him to the crime in ways he could not escape. What had seemed like a flawless plan was now unraveling. All because of one tiny mistake, a purchase that should have gone unnoticed, but instead became the key to unlocking the truth. Mark's perfect crime was no longer perfect, and justice was closing in faster than he had imagined. With the poison container and Mark's detailed notes in police hands, the investigation gained undeniable momentum. Detectives now had physical proof that connected Mark directly to Lisa's death. The careful planning he had invested so much time in was falling apart, piece by piece. His alibi, once airtight, began to look more like a fragile story built on deception and misdirection. Investigators returned to the couple's home for a more exhaustive search. This time, they found subtle clues that suggested Mark's desperation had pushed him to take risks. Hidden inside a rarely used cabinet were documents showing mounting debts and financial stress. Credit card statements revealed late payments, cash withdrawals, and unexplained transfers. These findings painted a portrait of a man struggling not just with his marriage, but with his own failing finances. Mark's attempt to appear composed and in control was a mask hiding growing panic. Detectives interviewed people who knew the couple well, gathering fragments of conversations and observations. Several friends recalled that Lisa had spoken about separating from Mark, worried about their future and her safety. She had confided in a close friend about feeling trapped and fearful of what Mark might do if she left. As the evidence mounted, Mark's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. He had underestimated the persistence and thoroughness of the detectives. The more they dug, the clearer it became that Mark's motive was more than just marital discord. It was a desperate bid to escape financial ruin and personal failure. Faced with the mounting pressure, Mark's behavior grew erratic. He attempted to erase digital traces, deleting emails, text messages and browsing history that might implicate him. But forensic specialists were able to recover much of this information, revealing the full extent of his planning and the lies he had told. One of Mark's most critical mistakes came when he tried to destroy the container of poison after the investigation had begun. Surveillance footage from a nearby store showed him buying cleaning supplies and large plastic bags the day after Lisa's death. Detectives soon discovered remnants of chemicals in the trash outside his home, suggesting an attempt to dispose of evidence. This cover-up only deepened suspicion. It showed a man who knew guilt and was willing to go to great lengths to hide it. The authorities had more than enough evidence to bring charges against Mark. The poison, the purchase records, the notes, the financial troubles, and the attempts to cover his tracks formed a powerful case. Mark's perfect plan was no longer perfect. Each new discovery chipped away at his defense and brought the truth into the light. The man who believed he could control everything had been outsmarted by a single mistake, a tiny residue that had set off a chain reaction. Now facing overwhelming evidence, Mark had no choice but to confront the reality he had tried so hard to avoid. Justice was closing in, and there was no escaping it. As the investigation deepened, more secrets began to surface. Secrets Mark had worked hard to hide. The picture of a perfect marriage shattered, revealing a tangled web of lies, deception, and desperation. Friends and family who once admired the couple started to share stories that painted a far darker reality than anyone had suspected. Behind closed doors, Mark's life was filled with mounting pressures. Financial struggles had been worse than he let on. While publicly successful, he was drowning in debt, gambling away money and hiding the truth from Lisa. His charm masked the panic that grew every day. The strain of his failing finances made him restless and unpredictable. Lisa, on the other hand, was quietly fighting her own battle. She had grown tired of Mark's lies and secrecy. Her friends revealed she had become distant, withdrawing from social events and confiding less often. She had begun planning to leave him, seeking independence and safety away from the mounting tension at home. Her decision was the final trigger in Mark's downward spiral. Detectives uncovered messages from Lisa to a close friend, expressing fear and sadness about the future. She described feeling trapped and worried about what Mark might do if she left. These messages revealed the emotional toll the marriage had taken on her, far from the happy life everyone saw. Meanwhile, Mark was hiding a secret double life. He had been involved in affairs, using charm and manipulation to maintain a facade of control. This betrayal added another layer of motive for him to eliminate Lisa, to protect his secrets and avoid exposure. The detectives pieced together the timeline of conflicts, arguments and moments of tension that had escalated over the months before Lisa's death. Each discovery revealed how fragile Mark's composure had become. His desperation was no longer just financial, it was personal. The fear of losing everything, his money, reputation, and freedom pushed him toward the irreversible decision to kill. Neighbors reported overhearing heated arguments late at night, voices raised and doors slammed. People close to the couple noticed Mark's sudden mood swings and growing irritability. Yet no one imagined the extent of what was happening behind the closed doors of their seemingly perfect home. All of this evidence painted a portrait of a man cornered by his own mistakes and choices. Mark's meticulous plan had tried to erase the visible problems, but it couldn't erase the underlying tensions. The detectives' work revealed that beneath the surface a storm was brewing, a storm that ended in tragedy. Mark's actions had been driven by fear and greed, but the truth could not be hidden forever. The more the investigation uncovered, the clearer it became that this was not just a crime of opportunity. It was a crime born from years of secrets, lies, and desperation. The perfect plan was built on fragile foundations, destined to crumble. As the case against Mark grew stronger, the pressure mounted on both the investigators and Mark himself. The detectives were determined to build an airtight case that could stand up in court. They combed through every detail, every moment, and every secret to ensure nothing was left unanswered. the tiny residue on the wine glass, the purchase of the poison, the financial troubles, the hidden affairs, all pieces of a puzzle slowly forming a clear picture of guilt. Mark, meanwhile, found himself increasingly isolated. Friends and acquaintances who had once admired him began to distance themselves. His carefully maintained image of success and charm crumbled under the weight of suspicion. He was no longer the confident man who hosted parties and smiled for photos. The man behind the mask was unraveling, overwhelmed by fear and regret. The police reviewed surveillance footage from the night of the party again, looking for any overlooked clues. They found something unexpected. A brief moment caught on camera outside the house, where Mark appeared nervous, glancing around as if checking to make sure no one was watching. It was subtle, but it contradicted his calm and collected story. Further forensic testing revealed another critical detail. The poison had reacted differently, depending on the glass it was poured into. The glass Lisa used had microscopic cracks that altered how the toxin broke down, causing symptoms to appear faster than Mark had anticipated. This tiny flaw in his plan was the single mistake that had doomed him from the start. What he believed was a perfect, untraceable method suddenly became traceable and fatal. In court, the prosecution presented the evidence meticulously. The jury saw how Mark had bought the poison, studied its effects, and plotted the murder. They heard about the financial troubles, the lies, and the betrayal. Witnesses spoke about the couple's deteriorating relationship and Lisa's fear. The combination of physical evidence and personal testimony painted a damning portrait. Mark's defense tried to argue that Lisa's death was accidental, caused by natural causes or an unknown medical issue. They claimed that Mark's purchase of chemicals was unrelated and innocent. But the evidence was overwhelming. The hidden notes, the poison container, the surveillance footage, all contradicted his story. The trial gripped the community, who had once thought they knew Mark and Lisa. The shocking revelations shook everyone who had believed in the couple's perfect life. The story was no longer about a happy marriage, but about how desperation and deceit could lead to terrible consequences. In the end, a jury found Mark guilty. The sentence was severe, reflecting the cold, calculated nature of the crime. The man who had thought he could control everything was finally held accountable. The tiny mistake that exposed him proved that no plan, no matter how perfect it seems, can escape the truth forever. Justice was served, and the nightmare that began with one small error came to a close. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read, sealing Mark's fate. The man who had once seemed untouchable, who had carefully crafted a flawless plan to murder his wife and escape punishment, was now exposed and condemned. The truth had prevailed, proving that even the most meticulously planned crimes can unravel because of a single overlooked detail. Mark's conviction sent shockwaves through the community. People who had known him struggled to reconcile the charming, successful man they thought they understood with the cold, calculating killer he was revealed to be. Friends and neighbors expressed disbelief, some feeling betrayed, others haunted by missed warning signs. The story dominated local news, capturing the public's fascination with the unraveling of a perfect crime. The impact of the case extended beyond the courtroom. Lisa's family found a measure of closure in the verdict, though their grief remained profound. They had fought tirelessly to uncover the truth and bring Mark to justice. Their efforts highlighted the importance of persistence and the power of small, seemingly insignificant evidence in solving crimes. Detectives involved in the case reflected on how the tiniest mistake, the residue on a wine glass, had cracked open what seemed like an unbreakable plan. It was a reminder of the painstaking work required in investigations and the sharp eyes needed to spot details others might miss. This case became a textbook example for law enforcement, illustrating how even a perfect crime can be undone. For Mark, life behind bars was a harsh contrast to the life he had once imagined. Stripped of freedom, status, and control, he was left to face the consequences of his choices. The carefully constructed world he had built for himself crumbled completely, leaving only the reality of his guilt. In the aftermath, the community grappled with the lessons of the tragedy. It was a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that beneath the surface, people may hide secrets and darkness. The story of Mark and Lisa became a cautionary tale about trust, deception, and the devastating cost of desperation. Law enforcement agencies used the case to improve training and forensic techniques, emphasizing attention to detail and the importance of following every lead, no matter how small. The poison's discovery on a simple wine glass showed that no evidence is too minor to investigate. Though the pain of loss remained, Lisa's story was no longer one of mystery or silence. It became a testament to resilience and justice, proving that even when a criminal believes their plan is flawless, truth and persistence can prevail. The perfect plan to murder had been exposed, and with it, a powerful message that justice cannot be escaped so easily. In the months and years following the trial, the case of Mark and Lisa became more than just a headline. It became a lasting lesson about the fragility of human schemes and the power of truth. Mark's story served as a chilling reminder